Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for being here. Today I thought I'd talk to you about some of the books on my physical TBR. So I'm going to talk to you about the books I'm most excited to read that I already own, basically. The first book I wanted to talk to you about was A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. I've said this before in other videos, but I first heard of this book through Gilmore Girls, so I downloaded the reading list last year and I got a few books from that list, and this was one of them. When I read the synopsis, it just really called out to me. So it's about a girl named Francie, sorry. And she's essentially growing up in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Her family is really poor, and I think this story is basically a coming of age story about a young girl's experience facing the realities of life. So I think life is quite harsh for her, both like in terms of her family, relationships, financially. It's not one of those books that necessarily has a happy ending. I think it's just very realistic. It talks about human experiences that we all have had or will have at some point. Those universal things kind of supersede your background. And I just feel like this will be a really quiet book. If you don't know, I love New York. I want to move there one day, and so I'm always drawn to stories that are set in New York, regardless of what they're about. Something is telling me that this book will transport you to Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and that's one of my favorite things in books, when they transport you. So yeah, I feel like it's a book that will, you know, maybe months after you read it, you'll still be thinking about it, and I feel like it will have a profound impact on me. Then the second book is Between the Wild and Me. I actually had started reading this book before at one point, but you know when you just feel like you're not smart enough for a book, like the language it was using, I don't know, the writing style, like it's so good, but I just felt like I couldn't keep up. But I do want to try it again at some point. This is a non-fiction book. It's basically about the author writing letters to his son and talking about some of the experiences he's had in life and giving him advice, I believe. It talks a lot about race, his experience with race, the impacts of slavery, the Civil War, segregation, and I think it's a way for him to portray his experiences to his son and give him advice at the same time. I think it will be a really insightful read and something that will help educate me further. But again, I think it will be a hard read, one that, you know, you want to highlight. Then the next book is The Box in the Woods by Maureen Johnson. So this is the author of Truly Devious. You might realize that the covers are fairly similar, but it's not a part of the Truly Devious series. This has some of the same characters, but it's a completely different setting and different mystery. So I think it's sort of like a summer camp kind of thing. Truly Devious is one of my favorite series, so I'm excited to get into this one. But yeah, Stevie and her friends from Ellingham Academy, I believe she gets a message to go to a camp, and there's an unsolved murder from 1978, and Phoebe and her friends basically try to help solve it. I don't think I will like this as much as Truly Devious, because the reason I love Truly Devious is really the setting and the vibes. Ellingham Academy, it sort of gives me dark academia setting wise, but not you know, it's not that dark of a book, because I think it's YA. If it's not set in that cozy mountainous Ellingham Academy with like all the, you know, that stereotypical boarding school, I just don't think it will appeal to me the same way. But it would be nice to still fall back into a cozy mystery, fall back in with these characters, so I'm excited for that. Then the next book is Deacon King Kong by James McBride. So this is another one I started reading recently and then I stopped, but it's not because I didn't like it. I just don't think it was the right time. Because I feel like I needed a lighter book where you didn't really need to concentrate that much. I only read about a chapter, but from what I read, I liked it. This is also a book that was recommended, I believe, by Barack Obama. Does it say that? Yeah. One of his favorite reads of 2020. It's basically about, I'm probably going to read off the back for this one, but it's set in 1969, a housing project in South Brooklyn. Basically, an old church deacon called Sportcoat shoots a drug dealer for no apparent reason. And it's basically about how this community deals with the repercussions of that moment, from Sportcoat's best friend to the local Italian mobsters, the police, the ladies of the Five Ends Baptist Church, which is the church that's quite central to this book. It's basically about a community under threat. I believe it's funny, heartbreaking. That's what it says at the back, at least. I guess what really drew me to this book, other than the fact that Barack Obama recommended it and the gorgeous cover, is I get the vibe that it has such unique, interesting characters. Like, even just reading from the back, the drug dealer who used to be part of the church's baseball team, the Italian mobsters, the ladies of the church, corrupt police officers. I just think it will sort of transcend just, I guess, the mystery of why Sportcoat shot that drug dealer. It's one of those ones where I don't feel like I'll necessarily be in it for the mystery, but I'll just be there enjoying the characters, their relationships, and their dynamics. Then I have The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. So I have read one Steinbeck before, Of Mice and Men, which I read for school. This one I did start reading at some point when I first got it, and I can't lie, I found it kind of boring, so I started listening to the audiobook at the same time. The language was not super consumable. I don't think it's flowery, but I don't know, maybe it's just not that engaging, like the writing style, but at the same time I feel like it's perfect for this sort of story. It's essentially set during the Depression, and this family, the Jodes, are kind of pushed out of Oklahoma because of the Dust Bowl. They're sharecroppers. I believe it's a story about the Dust Bowl migration. This family, as well as many others, are basically forced to leave their land and head west to California, where I think there's this belief that it's going to be a better life for them out there. And I think it follows their journey reaching there. But I believe ultimately it's sort of a tragic book, in the sense that they had high hopes for California when in reality life isn't as easy as they thought it would be. It says, but while this journey to this promised land will take its inevitable toll, there remains uncertainty about what awaits their arrival. I also just think it's one of those stories, you'll hear me say this again and again, but that will transport you. I remember from a past that I did read, like, you really feel like you're there in Oklahoma. You feel suffocated by the air. You can like really visualize what's around you, and I love that. And so I think the journey to getting to California will be just the same, just descriptive, interesting conversations between the characters, but ultimately just the setting is what will really stand out to me, I think, and make me feel like I'm there, just in this little nook of the world. Then the next one is Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk, who is a Nobel Prize winning author. This one is about a woman, it's an older character, she's in her 60s, and she's this eccentric woman. She's quite reclusive. She prefers animals to people. She's really into William Blake's poetry. What I'm getting is, like, she's just a really quirky character. I believe 2 men in their neighborhood are murdered. Where members of the local hunting club are found murdered. And I think she believes an animal is doing this. I don't know if it's a deer or what animal it was, but she has a theory that the animals are doing this, and I think she thinks they're taking revenge on humans. And I think it opens up some conversations about human rights, animal rights, whether we have the right to kill animals, the conversation about eating animals, religion. So I think it goes into quite a lot of those topics. So I feel like it will be a really good one. But I have heard that the writing style is quite unique and maybe hard to get into, so we'll see. And there's this one, I'm sure you've heard of this one before, The Secret History by Donna Tartt, the founding book in dark academia. Again, it's one I feel like so many of these I had started reading before, but sometimes it's just not the right time for a book. I have this feeling that I'm just gonna love it. It's like I already know it. It's basically about this guy. I think he moved from like California or Seattle. I might be making this up completely, but he ends up enrolling in a college in New England, and it's, you know, the typical dark academia university vibe, where like the buildings, the emphasis on autumn, fall, the architecture, the forest, you know, nature, just all of that, the books, the fireplaces, you know, that vibe, which I love, basically encompasses all of that. But it's a story about a guy. He moves to this New England college and he gets involved with this group of classics or Greek literature students. I can't remember quite what they studied, but they're under the influence of this really quirky professor, and it's about that group's friendship and how it becomes toxic. You're told, I think on the very first page, that one of the characters dies, and then you kind of go back to the beginning and find out how we reach that point where this group has, or someone in this group has seemingly murdered one of the members of their friendship group. And yeah, I think it talks about morality, the blurred lines between, you know, friendships and then just being consumed by a group of people, isolating yourself, and bending the lines of what can be considered moral and what can't be. I think it's one I'll probably read in the winter time. Then there's this one, it's a middle grade, it's called The Scandalous Sisterhood of Prickwillow Place, and I think it's basically about this boarding school for young girls. I think they're either children or young teenagers, I'm not sure. It's set in this boarding school near Cambridge, and basically the headmistress of this school dies, and instead of calling the police, this group of friends or the people in the boarding school decide to bury her and just cover it up and act like nothing's happened. And I think the story just follows on from there. I don't know too much more about it, but I don't know, I just feel like, you know, that again, dark academia kind of setting. I know it's not going to be like an actually dark story, given the audience it's for is obviously younger, but there's something about that setting that always calls out to me. I think we'll basically follow this group of friends, this group of girls, and there's something, if you watched my video, I don't know if it will come out before or after this, but my get to know me, my version of the booktube newbie tag, you'll hear me talk about this children's book I used to read that was like quite dark, and I think there's just something about a darker children's book because it's just paradoxical, and yeah, that really calls out to me because it's just something you don't expect. And that's sort of how I feel about this. I feel like it will just be a cozy, light read. I also wanted to give a special mention to these 4 books. I'm not going to talk about them in detail here because these 3 were in my birthday book haul, which I will link if you want to watch that. And then this one, I don't know if that video will be out yet or not, but it's gonna be in my Paris video. But yeah, that's all for now. That was all the books I'm most excited to read from my physical TBR. I don't know when I'll get to them because I feel like I need to be in the right mood to fully enjoy some of them. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd love if you could like the video and subscribe to my channel. And yeah, that's all for now. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you again soon. Bye.